Hey, so Kevin, looking back to this time last year, I mean, how much do you feel like you've grown, and how much more at ease are you in the job than kind of knowing where you're at?
Definitely more at ease. I mean, last year I was walking around and didn't didn't really know where I was going, didn't know who I was talking to, and it was a lot of introductory conversations. So there's much more comfort, and even though this is a pretty big place and you can get lost a little bit, but the comfort we were talking about earlier this morning up in the suite is just a different tone, I guess, for me personally. For everybody else, I think it's status quo, business as usual.
You guys have already made some moves. There's obviously some chatter. You might make some more moves. I mean, how do you feel with what you have, and where do you think you could go if you do anything?
Well, I think we feel as an organization we're really happy with the trade where we acquired the guys from Seattle, Morrison, Farquhar, and Miller. Brad Miller's a guy that we were talking about at this time last year. It never came about, but we were talking about him, and that just shows how relentless our guys are. When they like somebody, we're gonna try to continue to pursue him. And obviously, he fills a spot for us, and we really like the potential of his back. Logan Morrison, I mean, both of them are versatile. Morrison's obviously he can DH first base and place him in the outfield. That's going to help us. But I think with those two guys, adding left-handed bats is something that we could have used at some different points last year. And I mean, they made that move right when the season ended.
You said some last week when we were talking about shortstop and competition, and you kind of made it sound like Franklin and Beckham they're still in there. Or would you clarify that more? I mean, is Miller going to be your guy?
Well, I think Tim Beckham did a lot of good things for us last year. He's going to come in competing for a job. He's going to be competing for opportunity to play. And the same for Nick Franklin. Brad Miller's a guy that we feel he's going to help us in some capacity over the course of the year. And we would like for somebody to kind of take the reins and become our shortstop. We were kind of in a similar position last year, and Asdrubal Cabrera did that. So, hopefully we can figure some stuff out in spring training, and each individual makes the most of the opportunities that they'll be presented. But we kind of foresee it, whereas we're going to see some versatility because Miller can go to different spots. Nick Franklin showed a little bit of versatility last year, so it's going to be interesting, a little bit of a juggling in spring training to get him at shortstop, to get him at second base, maybe get him in the outfield a little bit.
Have you talked to either of them to qualify your position on that?
Which
Franklin or Beckham?
We've spent plenty of time talking to both of them, even at the end of the year. I'm sure that they are they totally understand kind of where they stand and the opportunity that's ahead of them. And from talking to them, both seem pretty hungry at the end of the year to come in and get in shape and have a really good camp and make some difficult decisions.
Right. So you'd prefer, though, with all that versatility, to have, in a perfect world, one guy be pretty much the everyday shortstop?
Well, I mean, not specifically, because I think that we do things where we try to balance ourselves, obviously, against handedness of pitcher. Speaking about Brad Miller, there's not a ton that I personally know about him, other than that we like him a lot, and so we're all intrigued to get him in around his new teammates, see what he can do, and if somebody takes the reins, so be it. That's fine, but I don't think we're ready to label one guy or want one guy just to be a shortstop.
Any further thoughts on Condor now that you've had about a little more time to think about his acquisition?
No, still excited about it. I talked to him that day that we all spoke. He seemed to be pretty excited. I told him he needs to get down here, or hurry up and get down, because it's a little difficult to find places in Port Charlotte to live. And but he seemed, it was the trade was no big deal. He'd been traded before, and he said, once it's happened, it's like no big news. So he's going to also be a nice complement to that left-handed side of our offense.
We've talked about a couple of your different pitchers. What is, you look back at what Odorizzi did and what he can do for you in the future. I mean, how do you value Odorizzi?
Quite a bit. I mean, with all the injuries that we had last year, you could maybe make an argument that Odo's injury was the most devastating to our team that was on the field. We were playing really well. It seemed like we were on a pretty good run. and then when he hurt his oblique, we started scrambling a little bit. And that's because he was so consistent what he provided for us every fifth day. We locked that up with Archer, what they were doing, the 7 innings, and giving us a chance to win every game. And Archer is deservedly getting a lot of that credit, but Odo was right there in line with him up until the injury. So, he's a guy, he's young, he's going to still continue to evolve. He really buys into Jim Hickey's approach and really buys into our front office's thoughts on how to get him to maximize his best stuff. And when you have that type of buy-in, we can really benefit from it because he's pretty talented, very talented.
Yeah, Kevin, speaking of approach, can you address the times through the order philosophy your club has and game by game innings?
You want me to go through every game?
No, it's not a per game basis.
Right.
The innings and times through the order. You
Yeah,
guys
I mean-
obviously you guys pull pitchers quicker than anybody.
Right, I pulled him quicker than anybody and probably took a lot of heat for it. But, coming into the season, we felt that was the best chance for us to win. And I think looking back, when it works, everybody's happy. When it didn't work, there's some, people that want to ask questions, which we understand. But there were different reasons and different scenarios, so they're all individual. Like, you take a guy like Nate Carnes, a young pitcher that is establishing himself in the big leagues. In a way, we were saying, hey, you're doing everything we need to ask for you. Why are we going to let you fail or give him the chance to fail by just keeping him out there when we had a fresh bullpen? But times through the order, we value that, not to the extent of what maybe it's brought up on TV right now, but we do value it. But we also value kind of the eye test and how our pitchers are doing in that given start.
So you're willing to let the eyes overrule data to an extent. There are guys pitching well. He's maybe working his 4th time through the order coming up.
Well, yeah, we definitely we proved that, and we let Chris Archer stay out there plenty of times, late in ball games, and along with Odorizzi. I mean, I will say, had we had Alex Cobb, had we had Drew Smiley, we probably would have been talking, about different situations taking place, and might not have been that aggressive with that more veteran pitching staff.
Have you talked to many of the guys, other than coaching staff, maybe about some of the moves that have made? Do you feel any excitement? Maybe
I haven't really talked to too many of them. Today, everything is a text message. There haven't been a ton of conversations. We all kind of communicated through text and said, hey, once we get through the Thanksgiving and we get through the winter meetings, let's touch base. But through the text message, you could tell the guys seem to just be excited about getting ready to get back in the swing of things. This is about when everybody is done resting and ready to get back in the weight room and start hitting, throwing, whatever it is.
It sounds like you were saying that pulling guys early was kind of something out of necessity with all the injuries. So do you foresee that happening in the future?
Well, I hope we don't have the injuries for sure. But, we're going to be aggressive with our bullpen. If our bullpen's as good as we hope it is, we're going to want them pitching a lot of big innings for us. But we also, it's a balance that we have to find as a staff, because we also think that we have a very talented group of starting pitchers. It's going to be hopefully a little different because of maybe the injuries that we ran into at the beginning of the year. If we have some healthy guys, we'll have to go back to the drawing board and discuss how we're going to approach each game in the different scenarios that present themselves.
What kind of qualities do you look for in the bullpen arms to be able to handle that type of usage? If it's multiple innings per game, multiple innings back to back, whatever it is.
Yeah, two young guys that really stepped up at the end of the year, Alex Colome and Inny Romero, the resilient arms to be able to bounce back and then also be able to provide more than an inning of work. So many times now you see a lot of relievers that are one-inning guys and they're very successful. I think we found, by the way that we kind of structured our pitching staff, it'd be very beneficial to have those guys that can go multiple or get more than 3 outs, have the 5 and 6 out guys.
Kevin, you said, and you've said a couple times, you're happy with the group you have.
Yep.
And you also know how your front office is so diligent and relentless. So are you kind of curious or interested to see what they might be able to come up with in terms of maybe adding somebody or something like that?
Not really. I'm not curious because I feel like they do a really good job of keeping myself and our coaching staff in the loop, so you hear what's being discussed, and they're on top of it. But I mean, it's a little awkward to say we want more, because that's what are we saying to the 35 guys that we have coming in to compete. But I know that they're doing everything they can to make us better this year and also next year. And if something happens, we'll be excited about that also.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I mean, obviously you like the guys you have, but you know how these guys, your front office guys, work so many things. So
Right.
I didn't mean curious like they were surprising you, but I meant, just, hey, who knows what you're going to have come opening day? You might have a couple of young hitters added to the lineup or some different bats or something.
Well, that'd be better than having 4 or 5 injuries. Who knew then, but it wasn't good.
Right.
Kevin, I know you have to worry about your own team right now, but what have your impressions been of the Red Sox? They've been very active, having Carson Smith, David Price, and Kimbrel, and Young.
Did they get David Price? They did. Okay.
It's official.
Yeah, you know what? Good for the Red Sox. A lot of good friends over there. John Farrell's one of my closer friends in the game, and then some teammates. So they're doing everything they can to go out and compete. We all know the American League East is a very competitive division, and it looks like they're just adding more to that competition with the signings that they've made and the acquisitions.
Certainly, you guys know where you stand financially, and you're always going to be in a different position than the Red Sox and Yankees. But do weeks like this one sort of highlight that for you?
Well, I think it does maybe outside of our organization. Inside the organization, I don't think it affects us at all. We know that the structure that we have in place will work, and will continue to compete really well against the other teams that are out there.
You don't get discouraged. Bill asked you about your comfort factor and having had another year, having had a year on the job, but like specifically, where do you think that benefit would be? Like, I mean, the league better, your own players better, your own decision-making processes. I know you talked during the year.
More knowing our players and the relationships there, and then also I think the decision-making. I mean, last year there wasn't much that we could fall back on, or I could personally fall back on and say, well, 10 ball games ago this happened, this scenario played out. I didn't really have that. This upcoming year, I will have some experiences built up that I can maybe fall back on, and when we're making decisions in game with Tom Foley and I, and discussing things as it's kind of playing out, we'll have a little history to fall back on. But ultimately, we're in a better place as far as our relationships with the players. So there were a lot of unknowns. I think we all did a really good job of kind of coming together, but it's going to be exciting to get back in there come spring training and see everybody, and much more high-fiving and hugging and seeing how they did, their families, rather than shaking hands and introducing yourself.
Right. So you mean more like knowing the players personally than knowing if somebody is really good against a left-handed pitcher with breaking stuff away?
Well, I think that you basically get a pretty good sense for that fairly quickly, and then a lot of times the season's kind of a little bit of a roller coaster. So there were certain guys that would get as hot as they could be, and then the next month they're not that hot, and I don't think you can say, oh, I know this guy and when that is going to happen, but maybe you might know their mentality and how they're able to handle it when they do have those ups and downs.
Given the market, a lot of the roster seems to change most years. Are there challenges that knowing that maybe about a third of the roster will still be a lot of new guys, even if you've been there a year? As a manager, is it good to have sort of new blood, new energy?
Well, I think we always think we like the young guys, we like the new guys. They always seem to provide a lot of good energy, but the guys that will be back, they provide such a positive vibe in the clubhouse that I think they're very equipped to handle anybody that we bring in new addition. It's a welcoming group that and very quickly with the leaders on our staff or on our team, that will kind of show the way, and that we get a lot of buy-in because it's such a good culture, good atmosphere there.
Kevin, you saw a lot on the Yankees last year. What impressed you most about that team?
The Yankees. Well, I mean, we saw, specifically, you look at like a guy like Severino when he kind of came up, he was pretty impressive. What Alex Rodriguez did after not playing for a year, he was a force, and I mean, he really put it to us with a lot of big hits, big home runs. But they're so dangerous offensively with the left-handed bats, the power. And then you also, I mean, wherever they're playing, but especially when you're playing in Yankee Stadium, you know, we had some games that were decided by one swing of the bat, where it felt like we had control. We were in control of the game, and then all of a sudden, blink of an eye, home run, and the scores, you know, flip flop. So just there's a potent group that seemed to be able to hit the ball in the ballpark, and there's danger throughout the entire lineup.
When you looked at what they had in that 8-9 with Betances and Miller, is it surprising to hear Miller's name coming up in trade talks, given what a weapon?
You know what? I've tried not to think about those guys at all. I got so sick and tired of seeing them. So that's why I didn't mention them. But no, you're talking about two of the elite of the elite. I mean, I know what the Dodgers just did, but as far as a righty-lefty combination, I guess the argument now is those two or Kenley Jensen and Chapman. But we saw Miller and Betances too much. They're very, very tough to handle.
How much has the strength and conditioning and medical staffs changed from when you were a rookie until now? It seems outwardly seems like there's a lot more sophistication of data and individualized plans. What have you noticed?
Pretty much that. I mean, there's a lot of involvement. And we feel like we have as good a training staff as anybody in baseball. They do a great job, and they were very much tested this year with the amount of injuries. But the way they come in, stay positive, and they stay innovative in their, you know, they're constantly at seminars. They're constantly trying